Hey there, Jimmy Snow here. What you're about to watch is a clip from my other channel, The Line, which you may want to check the link for in the description. We do call-in shows 5 days a week related to skepticism and humanism. Also, don't miss the return of the Sometimes Show sometimes twice a week here on this network. Subscribe, notifications, all that sort of thing. All right, enjoy the clip.
Sure. We have Jack in Maryland is a theist, pronouns are he, him, has an argument against skepticism and for the supernatural. That's two different arguments, I would think, because I'm going to give you time here, Jack, but you do realize that an argument for the supernatural and an argument against skepticism has to be two different arguments, because all skepticism is wanting to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. So you can do whichever one you want first. You can either present an argument against skepticism or an argument for the supernatural. But I don't know how you could try to do both at the same time, but I don't see that.
I know it sounds strange. I'm aware. By the way, full disclosure, I have called in before. Jimmy, I'm glad you're feeling better. I didn't really get to see the beginning of the show, but I'm glad you're back.
Word.
And yeah, what'd you say?
I just said word.
Word.
It's my favorite word.
Word. Yeah. Yeah. So just for clarity's sake, I want to be clear when I say that I have an argument against skepticism. I'm talking about the very specific sort of skepticism that seems to be laid out. I assume shared both by Jimmy, you, and Matt regarding the validity of testimonial evidence. And as far as doing it at the same time, go ahead.
So first of all, skepticism is a philosophical position of wanting to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible and using the methods that best achieve that. Skepticism does not have positions on specific things, including the validity of testimonial evidence. So it seems that you don't really know what skepticism is.
Well, it was I apologize if I misspoke. It was just sort of a shortened way to explain it to the caller. I'm sorry if it was misleading in any way.
So do you think you have an argument against skepticism or just for the supernatural?
Skepticism, the only argument against skepticism I have is as it has been articulated on this show. I've watched you guys for a long time. So
I'm willing to bet money right now that you're going to present something that has nothing to do with how skepticism has been presented on the show, but go ahead.
Oh, look, Matt, I'm not trying to misrepresent you in any way, and I apologize if I do. In fact, I wanted to start off with a couple questions just to make sure that I am working from a correct framework. I like the Socratic method, so I thought we would start there if that's okay.
I like people to get to the point.
Yeah, we're 3 minutes in and apparently just getting started.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Apologies for that. So I guess my first question would be this, and I apologize if you already answered this to some extent. I
tell you
feel
what,
like I've heard.
Stop fucking apologizing for anything and everything and just get to the point.
Preamble, yeah. Jeez.
Okay. Matt and Jamie too. Or excuse me, Jimmy. Would you say that you only believe in claims with evidence?
For empirical claims that should be supported by evidence, yes. For other claims, for some other claims, the facts about reality serve as a sufficient framework to confirm it. For example, if Jimmy tells me that his favorite flavor of ice cream is vanilla, I'm willing to accept Jimmy at his word, despite not having any physical evidence beyond that, because I know that vanilla is a flavor. I know that people like those flavors. And I have zero access to determine whether or not Jimmy's telling the truth or not. So for that claim, I'm willing to accept him at his word. The other thing that happens is when I accept a claim, one of the factors is what happens, what has to change about my worldview if in fact I'm wrong. And so taking Jimmy at his word on his favorite ice cream preference, nothing about my worldview has to change if it turns out that Jimmy has lied to me or is wrong.
Okay. So that being the case, would you say also, and I'm asking this to Jimmy too, would you say that testimonial or testimonial evidence is never an acceptable form of evidence in any of those cases, not in regards to favorite ice cream flavor or anything personal.
Okay. I have no problem at all with testimonial evidence. I just gave an example of it that you shrugged off. But whether or not testimonial evidence is sufficient to justify a claim depends on the nature of the claim. If you tell me you just got a new puppy last night, that is sufficient for me to accept it. It doesn't mean that I'm right. It doesn't mean that you're not trying to fool me, but it's sufficient for me to accept it. If you tell me that you just got a pet fire-breathing dragon last night, that is not sufficient. The nature and quality and quantity of evidence is dependent on the nature of the claim before determining whether it's justified. Skepticism doesn't hold that every claim is weighted the same.
Okay. So just to be clear, so what it sounds like you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that certain claims are of a qualitatively different nature than other claims, and as such have to be held to different standards of evidence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what defines whether a claim is a fantastic claim or a less believable claim? Like, what is the actual metric for it?
I literally just did a video about this on my channel fairly recently.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And what happens is the claim is not in and of itself evidence for the claim, but what determines the extraordinary, so the common adage is extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The reason I'm willing to accept your claim that you have a pet, a new puppy, is that I already have mountains of evidence that puppies exist, that people keep them as pets, that people like to talk about getting them as pets. There's everything about your claim of having a new puppy is consistent with facts about reality that are clearly demonstrated. If you said you got a pet fire-breathing dragon, that is inconsistent with the facts of reality. And therefore, if you were to like take a balance scale, we take everything that we know about reality and put it up against your claim that you got a new pet puppy. And if all, or put it on there with that claim. And if all of that overcomes any reasonable objection, you know, this is all the way nature shows itself to be over and over again, then nothing else is needed. But when you say you've got a fire-breathing dragon, that conflicts with facts that we know about reality. There's been no demonstration that fire-breathing dragons exist. There's been no demonstration that people keep them as pets. There's been no demonstration that this is even possible. And so something more than your word is there. So the evidence for I got a pet puppy is your claim or your claim with relation to all of the evidence that we already accept about the world. And the evidence, and the claim about your pet dragon is your pet dragon with all of the evidence for that in the world. There simply isn't the same evidence for fire-breathing dragons in the world that there are for puppies.
Yeah, I think I understand that. But the question that comes to my mind is that it seems like there's a lot which we base our understanding off the world of that is fantastic that we have nothing but testimonial evidence for. And I'm not just speaking about the supernatural here. Well, one example would be the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which seems to violate like most of our like experience day to day.
No.
Plenty of laws.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
well, I'm happy to hear it.
Heisenberg presented that model as a way of specifically showing how absurd quantum mechanic claims were at the time. It is not the uncertainty principle isn't an actual correct physical model.
Okay. Okay, so that's
and it's also
me. I mean,
and it is also 0% testimonial evidence. It is an analysis.
Well, yeah.
It is an analysis of physics models, not testimony. So we're going to need a different example for your thing where all we have to go on is testimony.
Well, I mean, as another example, or it could go back to the same one if you prefer. It seems to me that a lot of the things that we know about physics in general, like observations, for instance, of the Higgs boson particle, is data which is being reported by people. And it's not like we individually get to observe the experiments that go on in those rooms. All we have
You
to go
get
off
to
is
see
what
the
scientists
data.
say.
So no, we don't just know what the scientists say. We know the data, and we know that science operates with a foundation of not only testable, falsifiable claims, but on reproducibility. This isn't what we know about the Higgs boson isn't just because some scientist said so. It's because some scientists have run a test and presented that data for peer review from other scientists. The fact that you can't personally go out and verify it does not mean that there isn't robust evidence for you that goes beyond testimony.
By the way, there is a process by which you can go and verify it. You just have to enter the sciences. Science is open to everybody. But you're basically, Jack, this is the equivalent of, there's a funny episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Mac, who is the dopey young Earth creationist, makes the same claim that you have the same faith in the scientists as they have faith in the prophets. And it's one of the, I mean, it's just bringing in Heisenberg uncertainty principle and stuff certainly dresses it up to make it sound sexier, but it's the same very silly principle because we do have things. And yes, you're not going to learn every science that you accept that scientists are doing science of. You are going to continue to see their fruits. And if you decide you want to pursue it, you can pursue it. But the trust in the prophets has yet to create a cell phone, and yet trust in the sciences has.
So we still need an example.
Yeah.
We still need an example of something where we are relying on testimonial evidence.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand the thing that Matt just laid out about how, like I understand reciprocity, like being able to reproduce experiments in a lab broadly. There are definitely things, and I want to be clear, I'm not saying that all science is the same level of faith that we have in that. Like, as an example,
no science is a level of faith. Faith is the excuse people give when they don't have evidence. Science is presenting tentative conclusions that are wholly based in evidence.
Yeah, I understand what science is broadly. What I'm talking about are very specific things that can only maybe be observed once. If you remember in the Trent Horn debate, he brought up the crisis of reciprocity. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong.
I don't know what word it is or what concept you're referencing. I also don't know what you're talking about with the Trent Horn debate. Can you present an example of this need for testimonial evidence that you think we're relying on? I don't give a fuck about Trent Horn.
The word you're looking for, by the way, is replicate, not reciprocity. That's has to do with reciprocation, not replication.
Apologies. I have.
Yeah, stop apologizing, man. If you do it one more time, my head's gonna explode. Just an example of something we rely day to day that we accept as true, even Matt and I as skeptics, that is purely testimonial.
Well, okay. If we can leave this, if you want to leave the science one, but another one would be
the failed one. Yes, let's leave the one that wasn't right. Sure, let's go to one that the way you said that was as though you were implying that you had successfully presented one, but you'll give us a new one. So you didn't.
To me, it didn't seem sufficient, but perhaps I'm wrong. But I'm happy to move on.
Very wrong. Jack, I very, very wrong, to the point that I'm ready to, I think I've deduced that you don't have much involvement with the sciences because you seem to also be wholly unaware of how they work. But I would like a testimonial based only thing we accept as true as skeptics, or geez.
Well, what I was about to say was history, like a lot of the examples of things that have happened 100 years ago.
History isn't a science, and the claims of history isn't science, and the claims of history aren't in the same category. If you tell me, for example, that if we have no reason to think that Jesus actually existed as a person. Despite that, or we don't have good enough reason to confirm his existence. Despite that, I'm willing to accept that, because there's nothing extraordinary that there was an itinerant Jewish rabbi in the first century. The extraordinary things about Jesus's purported existence are things like the miracles, and the only evidence that we have for those miracles are the anecdotes presented in the Bible. That is insufficient in the same way that saying you got a pet fire-breathing dragon is insufficient. So we're not relying on testimony to determine history. What we're doing is saying, hey, here's a fact that somebody reported once upon a time. What other sources do we have? And are those sources in competition? When we have a variety of primary sources that disagree on other things but agree on the thing in question, we then, historians, will reach the conclusion that for now, until such time as there's a disqualifier for it or a good reason to dismiss it, we will go ahead and presume that this is an accurate or a somewhat accurate representation of what happened then. But that's not saying testimony is sufficient to determine truth.
So basically, the level of assurity you have for a historical claim is quantitatively different than the assurity you have.
Oh my God, the question you asked 10 minutes ago when we said yes.
Yes, and this all goes back to David Hume, who's famously said, "The wise man proportions his confidence to the evidence." So you can have different degrees of confidence or different levels of confidence in a claim. I am highly confident that I exist. I'm pretty damn confident that Jimmy exists. I'm pretty confident that Jack exists. I'm not as confident that Jesus exists. I'm less confident that fairies and the Loch Ness Monster exist or could exist. I'm even less confident that magical beings outside of space and time exist. My confidence level in those things is proportional to the evidence.
Yeah, I know. That makes sense. I'm sorry if restating the premise made it sound like I didn't hear you the first time. I was just trying to recoup so I showed that I knew what you were talking about.
Because we've been at this for more than 15 minutes and made no progress, do you have an argument for the supernatural? Because I'd love to hear it.
Well, my argument was from basically a necessity to rely on testimonial evidence, and it seems we've reached an impasse in that regard. So,
cool.
I don't want to go over the same ground, and I don't want to waste anyone's time. So, if you guys, whatever you guys want.
I have a very quick, simple metaphor that I think might clear some things up on your historical thing too. If somebody comes to me and says, George Washington owned a red hat, and I say, cool. Great. I've not failed as a skeptic. If I then write a paper on the implications of George Washington and the future of the country, all upon the basis of the fact that he owned a red hat, now I have failed as a skeptic because I have affirmed a claim and I have staked the claim into the more extraordinary territory. So, or if you just take a different thing, he owned a red hat, fine. He owned a red dragon, as Matt said earlier. If I accept that, that's also failed skepticism. Even the weight of the acceptance of the fact changes according to the fact. When I say I accept he has a red hat, because what the fuck am I going to do? Spend my day figuring out if he owned a red hat or not? I don't care. But if whether or not I accept that he owns a red hat determines whether I will be tortured for eternity, now I'm going to want evidence of that red hat.
Yeah, this is where I was talking about. This is where I was talking about the impact of being wrong. What is if it turns out that the claim that I accept turns out to be false, what do I have to change about my worldview? That is one of the factors in determining what the risk is to assent. And so if somebody says, hey, George Washington had a red hat, whether he had a red hat or not doesn't seem to add much risk at all to, my life. I don't know how else to potentially phrase that.
Yeah, I do understand the example of the red hat. I remember a debate where you discussed George Washington having a dog named Piggy. I guess I would just say that it seems to me that there are historical claims that we have no more evidence for than George Washington having a red hat, which are significant and which we kind of have to take a position on with limited evidence. As an example.
Give an example.
Yes, exactly. Give an example.
Yeah, I need an example because right now I'm not aware of any example that I have to accept something from history on evidence like that.
Well, as an example would be like Bronze Age battles. And the reason why I would say that is significant is because those sort of historical events shape how we understand the world today and specifically how people interact. That is why I would say that to me, it seems like it's hard to avoid taking positions on things you have limited evidence for, which are potentially very impactful to your worldview if you're accounting for history.
Jack, if whether or not we had Bronze Age battles impacts our life today, they impact our life today regardless of if I accept them or not.
True, but it's about having an educated perspective. You want to have as many.
Some people
you want to believe as many true things.
Some people don't give a fuck about world history. Some people are just woodworkers.
I still don't have an example. So I need a more concrete example to understand why you think that I have to accept things that I don't have evidence for. I think we have lots of decent evidence for Bronze Age battles.
You do? I mean, obviously for some, but not for all of them. As an example, the battle that the Romans and the Carthaginians fought in the Aegean Sea, I'm not really sure there's a lot of boat remains we could go over, or even anything besides the texts, which are testimonial evidence.
I find it incredibly difficult to talk to you, Jack, because when I say that I think we have good evidence for Bronze Age battles, your reply is, for all of them? I think I found one where it doesn't work out. I didn't say for all of them. I didn't even imply for all of them. But are you suggesting, John, that we have no good evidence for any Bronze Age battles?
Oh, no, not at all.
No, not at all. And I wouldn't have fucking accused you of that had you not immediately gone to, what about this one? I think you're overlooking this one here where I don't have zero. I don't give a fuck. But I have zero reason. Okay, never mind. I have zero reason to continue this conversation.
Okay.
I actually here I have a last.
Oh no,
you
fucking apologized again.
Oh man, did you already do it? I have a last question.
I'm really not trying to be.
What's this?
I swear,
okay, stop.
You're not trying to be. You just are.
Right, but this sounds like an apology. You're ramping up too. So, Jack, what is the supernatural claim you believe we should accept on the same basis that because some Bronze Age battles happened, if somebody else says, "Oh, although also there was another Bronze Age battle at this time in this place," and I just go, "Dope." So that's the standard. That's what I do. If somebody says that, I just go dope, and you probably don't even remember it. On that standard that you've established that we do, what supernatural claim do you believe we should apply the same standard to? Because the stakes are similarly low, and the qualities of Bronze Age battles and the characteristics are established to have otherwise happened.
Well, I can't answer the question because I don't agree the standards are low. But if you're asking me just like broadly what, supernatural claims, I would say specifically supernatural claims that seem to come from trusted sources.
Give one. Just give one supernatural claim we should accept.
Wow.
Just one.
Supernatural, literally you just said supernatural claims that seem to come from trusted sources. You didn't state a claim. Instead, you stated a category of claim, which is an extremely stupid category of claim, because whether or not a source seems to be trustworthy doesn't mean that it is trustworthy. So what supernatural claim do you think we should accept because it comes from a seemingly trustworthy source?
I would say the general phenomena of apparitions throughout history. Not all of them, but enough of them that it is.
Okay,
not,
give one.
Not all of them.
One.
Not all of them. Just the ones that you think come from trusted sources. So you want to dismiss the ones that you don't think come from trusted sources. So give me one that has a really good trusted source for an apparition.
Only one. The bar is so low. One.
Okay. I suspect you'll have an answer to this, but I think Fatima is a good example.
You do?
Yeah, well, my understanding is
What's the trusted source? What's the trusted source?
The testimony of all the people who stood in the field and saw the apparition of Mary.
Why are they trusted?
Oh my God, I'm remembering when you called last time now.
The only time I've called on the show was on the hang up when I was annoying Hobbesian.
Oh, okay. There was another person who called in with the apparitions of Fatima and other Mary.
Why are they a trusted source? Have you interviewed them?
What'd you say?
Have you interviewed them?
No, I have not.
Do you have firsthand interviews that demonstrate these people to be trustworthy?
From what I read, yeah, I think I do.
From what I read, yeah. What? You read a story. You read a story, and you think the source is trusted. Why? That's what I'm asking.
Well, because it's been cited and reviewed. I looked through you asked for a specific example. I'm sorry, I don't have the text in front of me right now.
What has been reviewed? What has been reviewed, and by whom?
The testimony of the people there by third-party, non-Christian interviewers.
Who?
I'm sorry, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, Matt. I mean, I could try to find it on Google.
You're talking about the 3 kids, right?
There were kids, and then there was a later apparition towards I think it was a couple hundred people in the field at Fatima, at the end of it all.
Do you know the details of the thing you're trying to propose as a trustworthy apparition?
Not offhand, but I have read on it. And I'm
and
sorry,
you just went, this adds up.
What's up?
And
Cool.
you went, this adds up. So I'm just stoked, Jack, because I'm excited to tell you about all the witnesses to early miracles of Mormonism, all the witnesses to the Book of Mormon actually being made of plates, which was the number of witnesses who allegedly saw the golden plates that Joseph translated using the hat and stuff is more than the 3 kids. And then the subsequent crowds of people who saw the miracles is also more than the what you've reported to read. It's going to be wild, Jack, because why wouldn't you take them at their word and become a Mormon soon? And then when you're done with that, we're gonna do Islam
Jack has
after.
to be a Catholic. Jack has to be a Catholic.
I'm more of a broad Christian, but I was raised anyway.
No, Jack. No, Jack. Do you not understand the messages of Fatima, where she specifically instructed them to come on the 13th day and pray the rosary every day? That's necessarily a Catholic prayer.
Oh, I know. I know. Yes, I am aware.
So you just believe the apparitions are Catholic, but you're not,
right?
I'm sorry. What did you say?
Sorry.
So you're a Catholic, right?
I'm a broad Christian, but if you want to put me in that box, that's fine.
Do you pray the rosary? Are you an active Catholic? Do you accept the positions of the Catholic Church?
Well, I have issues with the doctrine because the text doesn't seem to line up with some of the things the church teaches. So
how is it that you can believe Mary appeared and gave specific instructions to a group of reliable people and that this story is true, and yet you still don't pray the rosary and accept the Catholic Church?
Well, I do pray the rosary, but I don't necessarily believe all
Then
the
why
doctrine
didn't you
of the church
fucking
does.
say that when I fucking asked you?
I'm sorry, you cut out. I misunderstood. I apologize.
Bullshit. All right. Hey, do you know how the Bronze Age got its name?
From the use of bronze for tools and weapons?
Or tools and weapons. So we have lots of bronze weapons, right?
Yeah.
You don't think those bronze weapons from the Bronze Age are sufficient evidence that Bronze Age battles took place?
Well, no more than if, someone took you to Mecca and they said, here's a pile of rocks. This was Muhammad's thing. It wouldn't prove that was Muhammad's rocks.
Let me try this again, because I don't believe you're this stupid. You don't think that the existence of Bronze Age weapons is sufficient physical evidence for the likelihood of Bronze Age use of those bronze weapons for battles.
Oh, it absolutely is sufficient evidence for that, but not for any specific.
Of course it is. Which is, see, what did you say at the last?
It seems like I don't understand how you can look at a Bronze Age
What did you say?
weapon and
Never
say,
mind. Never
this
mind.
was
I'm done
definitely
with Jack.
used in this
I am
battle
absolutely
based only on
uncontroversially. No,
testimonial evidence.
no, Jack. No, Jack. I'm fucking done. Because your whole thing was that we have to rely, shut up. We have to rely on testimonial evidence. And we have to rely on testimonial evidence with regards to Bronze Age battles. No, we don't. We have Bronze Age weapons. That's what the fucking age is named after. The changes in metallurgy that led to Bronze Age weapons, which were used in Bronze Age battles. That doesn't mean that every claim of every battle was real, but clearly, as you pointed out, it is great empirical, non-testimonial evidence of Bronze Age battles.
Yeah, just not specific ones. That was my point.
You have no point.
Yeah, there's Jesus Christ.
Okay, I won't say I'm sorry, but
all right,
I wish we
bro,
could've gotten
since
somewhere.
you weren't going to do your own heavy
won't either.
lifting, just so you know the details, it was 3 kids. There's no hundreds of people in the field who also saw her. What they saw was on October 13th, potentially up to 70,000 people reported seeing a solar phenomenon, which they associated with being the miracle promised by the Lady of Fatima to the 3 kids, and that miracle was the sun falling to the earth. And by the way, people use this story in courtrooms to show why eyewitness testimony cannot be always trusted, because 70,000 people apparently were willing to say the sun fell to the earth. So is that still
Didn't
the
happen.
one you thought we should accept because it's reliable? Or do you think
Yeah,
when you
just-
get... Yeah, so you do believe that in 1917 the sun fell to the earth? Do you also not understand how the sun fundamentally works?
It wouldn't surprise me at all if God can make an apparition that the sun falls to the earth to 70,000
So now
people.
we've already jumped
It
way
wouldn't
past
surprise
just
me at all that Jack will
supernatural.
believe anything if he thinks it comes from fucking God.
Right. So God also wanted to trick these 70,000 people into thinking the sun could fall to the earth and make sure they also fundamentally wouldn't understand how things work. And by the way, only they saw it. Nobody else in 1917 on October 13th. No one else in the entire world.
God gave an apparition to these people in a field that they understood to be the sun falling to the earth, which is impossible. And nobody else noticed it. So you now believe that there's a prankster God
Yeah.
that intentionally deceived thousands of people as evidence that this God exists? Do you know how stupid that is?
By the way, we don't have
Well,
70,000 accounts of it. We have accounts that 70,000 people saw it, not 70,000 accounts.
What kind of
Well, yeah,
fucking
they're-
dickhead God? What kind of dickhead God do you believe in that is intentionally sending deceptive apparitions to people?
Well, Matt, I mean, I've read the Bible the same as you.
I doubt that.
Knowing the position, like the actions God takes in the Old Testament from the book of Job on, it's not that surprising to me that he would do something that looked, like that to 70,000 people. Old Testament is full of that sort of stuff.
I know
it
something
doesn't
else
seem to
that's full of
contradict
that
anything
sort of
that
stuff.
was laid out about.
You're full
What?
of it.
Okay.
Hey, how do you explain the photographers that were present for the miracle because it had been forecasted something would be there, who didn't get a picture of the sun, which had appeared to adapt to a disc, began spinning like a disc, not an orb, but like a disc, then was zigzagging when it careened to the earth, then zigzagged back to its position? What do you make of the fact that we have 0 photos despite the fact there were photographers present?
Well, that makes perfect sense to me because it didn't
'Cause
appear
you're-
to anyone
'cause
else on
bec-
Earth. It was to
They were
show people
present
in that.
at the miracle.
Yeah.
They were present. So what you're saying is God used a special projector, because he didn't do it to the actual sun, otherwise the rest of the earth would have seen, used a special projector
Correct.
to make it look like that's what happened, but specifically did it in a way that cameras couldn't pick up.
Yeah, because
So why is your God willing to give 70,000 people that evidence, but not the rest of the world?
Well, I mean, same reason divine hiddenness is a problem generally. It
Because
exists.
it's stupid, because it's a thing that you do that you get stupid people to fall for. The
Divine
miracles.
hiddenness. Divine hiddenness is an argument against God. It is not more evidence for a God. Every time we point out a problem, you don't ever get to talk to me about skepticism ever, Jack. You don't understand it at all. But every time we point out a problem, you're like, well, that makes perfect sense because God's a dick, or God would do this, or God did this in Job, or God would intentionally hide it from the camera because I believe in a stupid prankster God that's going to demonstrate his fucking existence while absolutely doing nothing that would demonstrate his existence to anybody who's not a clueless buffoon who doesn't understand evidence.
What do you make of all the people who were there as believers who had been promised the miracle, who were there next to the people who were believers and saw the miracle, but they didn't see it?
Well, that's news to me.
Well, the whole thing seems to be news to me, because you couldn't even give me the basic details at the beginning. I had to go look it up to refresh my memory.
Pulled this up. We pulled this up because neither of us have this memorized, even though we both talked about it half a dozen times or more.
Yeah.
We had to go look it up. Why couldn't you look it up?
Well, because I didn't know we would go down the specific road beforehand.
Why do we have to do all the work to look up and explain your fucking argument to you?
Jack, you called in and told them you wanted to present an argument for the supernatural, and you're saying that it surprised you we asked for one example? And the one that you gave, you needed to have ready to investigate?
Well, my argument that I was trying to make at the beginning was in regards to claims which seem to be based purely on testimonial evidence to me from science. That was the direction I assumed the conversation would go. It didn't go that way, so I wasn't prepared for a different debate.
You weren't prepared to give an example. And again, even the example you did give, there are testimonies of the people present who said it did happen, who were literally staring into the sun. That's one of the explanations, is people were told to stare into the sun and may have had their eyes fucked up by that, and then saw stuff. And now we've conglomerated all the different stories of what that eye damage looked like into the disc falling. But literally, you want us to go with, on the basis of your testimony thing, one of the things you've accepted is something where thousands of people gather to witness a miracle, some of which say, even though they were believers, it didn't happen, and some that say it did. But that's one you've accepted. Wild, buddy.
Well, yeah, Jimmy, it's news to me that there were a lot of people there who didn't see it. My understanding was everyone saw it, or
nope.
For the most. So
yeah, next time you should actually read the example. And this is the thing. When you hear something that extraordinary, and I feel like we're just looping back to the very beginning, so this is, I think, going to be the final thought unless Matt has something. If something that extraordinary comes across your desk and you don't find those details, you did fail as a skeptic if you accepted it as true. If you hear something like the disc falling out of the sky, thank you. If you hear something like the disc falling out of the sky and you accept it on this basis of not reading very deeply, and you don't literally look for, in the way science often works, the things that disqualify it, that disprove it, you have failed as a skeptic. And it really just sounds like you read a headline, but not on Snopes, and just accepted it. Matt, do you have anything left for Jack?
No.
Jack, call back with an example that you feel thoroughly ready to defend.
I will try. Thank you, Jimmy.
Sounds good. Bye, Jack. Bruv.
Hey, Hey, I hope you enjoyed that clip. A reminder, we do 5 shows a week over on that channel, The Line, and you should check out the link in the description. We will also be launching more formal debates soon, and right now the shows are awesome. On Sunday, we do a show dedicated to religion, theism, and that sort of thing. On Monday, we get more scientific with Skep Talk, and we usually have a scientist as at least one of the hosts or a person in the science-related fields. And then on Tuesday, we have Dying Out Loud with Dave Warnock, an amazing man who is dying of ALS and is using his remaining Tuesdays to tell you about finding purpose without God, without religion, and what it's like to be not just dying out loud, but living out loud. Wednesday, Matt Dillahunty does the Hang Up. And on Thursday, we have a trans call-in show only hosted by trans people called the Transatlantic Call-In Show. We call it TACUS for short. That's why I just stumbled over it. And don't miss the return of the Sometime Show here on this channel right now, twice a week on a, for now, schedule of sometimes. I don't have a dedicated date or time. You'll want notifications on if you want to make sure not to miss it, but usually in the afternoons and evenings, and often something early week and then something a little later in the week. It's, you know, it's convoluted. Like, subscribe, hit the buttons, do all those things. I can't make you, but you could do it. And it's this little thing that all you have to do is go like, all right, I'll let my thumb do that because what does it mean to me? All right, I got you. Boom. Bye. Fade to black.